Welcome to Season 3 of the Moving On Podcast. I'm Jay Norman, and this is my wife.
Hi, I'm Jess Norman.
Babe, did you really think anybody would hang around to listen to a third season?
What is a really good word for the opposite of yes?
My thoughts exactly. And thank y'all for hanging around.
We sure appreciate it.
And on to the show.
Hi, babe.
Hi, babe. How are you tonight?
Do you like being on that couch?
Not really. It's
You
not
don't.
as comfortable.
I'm having so much fun.
You are?
I was
Why?
supposed to ask you how you're doing, right?
That's right.
Okay, how are you?
I'm good, babe. How about you?
I'm doing good. I feel like you're about to throw your glass across my nice carpet.
I'll try not to.
His big old Bucky's styrofoam cup is just teetering on the... And he's not the most delicate of creatures. Y'all know he's not.
Hell, I didn't want to rattle my ice the whole time, so I had to set it down.
So we are coming back to you guys after a couple of months off, maybe a few. We won't talk about it anymore. Y'all might remember this, but I like to kind of go to Jay and go to the Lord about our guests, or really try to pay attention to that still small voice on who he would kind of want us to have on our podcast. And right before we stopped recording last time, it was pretty clear that it was Jay. Jay was going to be up next. And
Lucky y'all.
I know that I do a lot more talking than him on our podcasts. And
Our podcast has done pretty good with you talking, so might be something to that.
I really appreciate you saying that.
Sure.
So I want you guys to know Jay more and more and more, and love him more and more and more like I do. And something really neat about our podcast is the women can say, look, this old farmer is on this podcast. You would relate to him. And women have actually gotten their men to listen to a podcast for the first time. Our friends around town will listen for the first time. And so what would be neater than to have them connect further with you? And so if you would like to, I'll shut up. And if you would like to start off by just telling us a little bit about your background and your bio, where we start all of our guests off.
Well, I grew up in the big city of Howe, actually Dorchester, Texas, south of Sherman, and grew up on a farm, and it was our house, my aunt and uncle's house, my grandparents' house, and then the house that I lived in when I was born, and then our shop, and it was all probably within a mile. And grew up on family land there that my granddaddy bought, I think, in the late 30s.
Okay.
And came there. And so my dad and my uncle farmed together, and my granddaddy was there up until I was probably 24.
Okay.
And they had one main employee there that he's been with them since I was 5 years old, and he's, just like family to me. Yeah. And so grew up there and worked on that. I had my mom and had two sisters, and one older, one younger.
Okay.
And we just got along really well for most of the time. I mean, we had our spats, but I love them both dearly now, and we had a happy childhood. And obviously was ag based and loved all that, and sports, and played football and basketball, and just had a lot of fun growing up.
And did you always want to be on the farm, or?
Never thought about anything different. I remember from being a little kid all the way on, that's all I ever thought about doing.
Right.
And my mom's dad was a cowboy. My dad's grandparents lived two houses up. I was up there nearly every night with them, and they both lived on the farm and worked on the farm their whole lives. Married when they were, I think my granddaddy was 18, my grandma was 14 or 16 and 18. I've kind of forgotten the exact, but they were together, their whole lives nearly. Right. And then my mom's parents, they lived about 35 miles away, and my granddaddy was a cowboy, and my grandmother bought and sold antiques and redid them. And so I just had a lot of influence from different type people, and I worked with my granddaddy a lot when I was little.
Do you have a farming memory from when you were little that you think of so fondly?
One would be coming in at like 4 o'clock in the morning one time with my dad, and they'd already thrown the Sunday morning newspaper out. And we always kind of laughed about that we got home after the Sunday paper had been thrown. We never worked a Sunday my whole life. I remember going and fixing fence if the cows got out, or one time we put a fuel line on a tractor and drove it to the edge of the field, and that's the only two things I remember my whole life of working on a Sunday. It didn't matter if we had the best wheat crop out there and rain coming, we didn't work, and we still continue that today.
Right. I've told you on here how much I appreciate that you've saved our family by being that way. A fun fact, I was raised that way. So we wouldn't mow on Sunday. We wouldn't do anything on Sunday. It was a day of rest for certain.
Yep.
I thought that that's what the term Sunday drivers meant. I thought that the policemen also took the Sabbath, so you could just drive however you wanted. You didn't have to stop at stop signs. You could go over the speed limit. That was what a Sunday driver was.
Well, I remember my granddaddy being a Sunday driver for sure. The older he got, the slower he drove.
Will you tell them my favorite story about your childhood that I always tell is you being alone and going to the field in the tractor and stopping for lunch, and that's my favorite.
Yeah, so we farmed some land. It seemed like it was 100 miles away then. I was probably 10 or 11, and it was actually now probably 35 miles south of where, maybe not even that far, 25, and I drove a four-wheel drive tractor down there, and I would stop in this little town and go in. My dad would give me money. I'd go in and get a bologna sandwich and a Dr. Pepper and that, and take it with me, and that was my lunch for today. I thought that was pretty big stuff going down there and working by myself all day. And we had, I don't even know then if we had two-way radios. We for sure had no cell phones. And so when you went, if you wrote down, you either fixed it or you waited on somebody to get there, and that's just the way it was then.
Yeah. As Cam would say, that was your tractor snacks for the day.
That's right. My mom and grandmother were pretty good packers, so
it
usually was pretty good stuff.
Can you move on further to when you kind of had to decide if you would farm with the family, with your dad and uncle and cousins, or go off independently? Can you tell us about that decision?
Came out of college, and my dad and my uncle were farming, and my cousin and I partnered up and farmed together, and my dad and them were involved in it too, and it just something that didn't work. We were just two totally different personalities, two totally different drives. I mean, he's a wonderful guy, been super successful in real estate, and just done very well. And we're good friends now. But we ultimately split up, and we still kind of did everything together as a family. Bought inputs and stored grain and shipped grain and did all that stuff, but gradually just split the operations completely and got away from that. And my part of my family still farms today.
Yeah.
We run two totally separate operations, but if one's in a bind, the other needs something, we'll go help. We still store grain together and help each other all we can, and still talk to my uncle a lot, on a daily basis.
You were talking to him just before. And how old were you when you started off on your own?
I was going to say, too, my dad retired about 6 or 7 years ago. My uncle's older, but he's still farming with his grandson. And so, got my first loan probably when I was 19 or 20. And started farming then, and I guess in my 20s completely, separated off when my cousin got out and had my own loan and land and stuff. And then over time, it just transitioned to, I see it now, I didn't see it then. It's just a point where, you quit asking your dad and them questions about what to do. You make your own decision, and at some point it transitions to them asking you. And the older you get, you can see it a lot more clearer now than I could then, for sure.
Right. Why farm? And if you did anything else, what would it be?
Second one's probably a tough one. Why farm? It's just something that gets in your blood. It's something you look forward to every day and that crop and knowing that that's there and, just thinking about it being, you only get so many crops in your lifetime and so everyone's important.
Yeah.
And it was just, raised around it and watching my granddaddy do it and watching my dad and my uncle do it and the drive they had and the push they had to do things right and, for everything to look right. It just gets in your blood and stays with you. And that's,
right.
and it, in my opinion, it has to be in your blood to be able to survive doing it because it's definitely a lot of ups and downs for sure.
Right. I've never met somebody that enjoyed what they did as much as, say, enjoying a hobby.
Right.
I've never seen someone so passionate about their occupation. And I've watched you for nearly 5 years bound out of bed to go there. There's never grumbling or I don't want to go to work, or you don't ever come home where I need to pour back into you. You always kind of run on full. And I know that is because I'm entering the picture to a seasoned farmer.
Sure.
But it's very, I like to study people. So it's very intriguing to me that you, out of everyone I know, have one of the more stressful positions, but you enjoy it more than any of the less stressful jobs.
Right.
So that's really neat for me to see. Are you strictly farming, or are there, y'all know I have to act like I don't know him, but it does sound silly, doesn't it? Are you strictly farming, or are there other facets of your business you could tell us about?
Definitely other facets. Farming is my main focus, and my main love of everything we do. It's the part that gets you out of bed every day and wants you to go do that. But we also sell seed, chemical, and fertilizer, and that started out as a seed business in college, and just I guess would probably be the only hobby that I really ever had, and started out as a seed business and then over time has just developed into more, and it's something that's grown. And I always tell a story that in 1995, it was a really, really wet fall rain. I think I've probably told it on this podcast before, but it rained like 70-something inches and we didn't get a wheat crop planted, just a little bit. And then transitioned into the spring, and it was just late. And we planted the entire crop, everything nearly in row crop. And then when we got it all up and going, it just shut off and quit raining. And we made literally nothing,
Right.
no crop. And so it was just a really hard time, really lean and down to, kind of down to we're going to make or break here. And I really started working on other parts of my business, selling seed and buying, selling equipment and forklifts and hauling hay, and then started hauling grain. And it just kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of done the Johnny Cash way. I've just added a little overtime as we've gone, and now that's as big a business as our farm, and we truck and do a few other things and have some cows, and
Right.
and it's all, I love all of it. It's all like farming. It's up and down, and it's all ag based and tied to ag and the weather and all that. So it has the same parameters and up and down as farming, but it's a lot of fun.
Right.
A lot of fun.
You have a pretty big support staff. I think it would be really important to shed some light on them here.
Yeah. 2 women that work for me that are just like family. Been with me, I think one of them 15 years, I think, and the other probably about 13. And I lose track of time. We just talked about it the other day, but one of them grew up in my hometown. A really crazy story of how she came to work for us, and just really smart, really go-getter that
Yeah.
where everything, I'm just kind of wild and crazy. She's everything down to the T. And the other one was my banker, and always a really good friend. And she just doesn't take any crap from me or anybody else. And that's what I need. And they both keep me on the straight and narrow of everything we're doing and getting stuff done right and doing that. And then, our guys on the farm just do a tremendous job. Our foreman is, somebody that I I just think the world of him and think he's a great person. And, I'd hate to do it without him. And, he makes good decisions, and he's just, I guess the main thing, he's just a really good person.
I
And,
think you can say his name. A lot of people will know him.
yeah, Jerry Workman, and he's been our foreman, I guess, in the foreman position for about 3 years now, but been with us probably about 7, somewhere close to those numbers. And he, just a really exceptional person that takes all of it to heart, treats it like his own, and gets up every day, and gets up Saturday morning sometimes just to come move a bull, or just something he didn't get done, or something he knows needs to be done, even when nobody's working, when it's wet or whatever. And we have another team of guys. I mean, we've got one, Kenny, that works for us. I mean, he's a better operator than I am. He's better at running any piece of equipment than I am. I mean, he's just, really, really smart guy. And
a good person.
very, very good person. And, we have...
Calvin.
We have Big Calvin. I mean, he started with me when he was 16 years old, and just blossomed into a really, really good person, and super smart. And,
Dependable.
very dependable and unbelievably mechanically minded. I mean, he is just so far and above, where I ever was mechanically. It's just, it's not even funny. He just, everything, he just soaks it up, anything he does, and he can come back and look at something and just kind of tear it apart in his mind. And the biggest thing is, I mean, he's willing to do any job.
Yeah.
It don't matter, the worst job on the farm, and he'll go do it and never say a word.
Yeah.
And, no telling what that guy could lift. I mean, he's stout as an ox.
Well, the first time I hung out with him, he was helping put some files in our one of our storage units, and he wanted to put some plywood down first. So he grabbed with 2 hands. I'm not kidding. He grabbed a piece of plywood with 2 hands, threw it in the air, and caught it by the bottom of the sides to shimmy it up, and then just tossed it up. And I just was looking at him like, I don't know anyone that can do that. Like, I don't. D-Bob.
D-Bob worked for us for, I don't know, I guess since he was about 19 years old. I do remember I had to go buy some special insurance for him to be able to drive a truck, and he's been with us ever since. Probably 15 years too, and just a really top hand and a go-getter, and do anything, work on a truck, and just get nasty as all get out.
Yes.
But keeps a really, really nice truck. And I have a guy that works for me and been with me a long time, Nicho, and he has a son grandson actually, that works for us, that's been with me a long time, and just super people that, he's done everything in the world for me, and done everything I've ever asked him, and just, come at the drop of a hat. And, Jerry's son, Hadley's come into the operation and become a main part of it, and just watching, having a guy there, and then having his son want to be there is pretty awesome.
We've had a couple of father and son duos that have been...
Absolutely. A couple of brothers at times. And
Kelbs and Cold.
Kelbs and Coles, they're, we have, within our sales business, we have two salesmen. Kelby's like a 5th cousin who's been coming to the field since he was, I don't know, his daddy brought him to the field, I think, when he was 6 days old. And he's been coming ever since, and riding in the combine his whole life with me, and now he's working for us. He mainly is in the sales side, but he does do a lot of work on the farm, and Colby works on the sales side, and he farms too, and they both do a really good job. And and then I can't fail to mention BW.
No, you can't.
And Jim and Billy and Randy, but Jim and Billy, of those, have been with me the longest. Billy's probably been with me longer than anybody. Long time. Those guys drive trucks for us and keep everything moving, and keep their trucks up and do all that kind of stuff. And they're all local guys that I've known for a long time, and just do a really good job, and very dependable. And that's the main thing in what we do.
I think it's safe to say that without the people that we just mentioned, you and I would not be sitting here married.
No, and I mean, all those people, a lot of the success, that we've had
Yeah.
is directly tied to them,
It
because
is.
when you incorporate everything that we do, those guys, I mean, Jerry, he may be on a horse first thing in the morning. He might be running a bulldozer in the afternoon or working on a combine, and
Yeah.
then he may be loading chemical for somebody, and everybody just kind
Right.
of comes in and out and hauls and delivers and does it all.
Yeah.
And it's, it definitely takes them all.
Yeah, I
And
know Kenny the other night, they ran till what time? 1:32 in the morning.
yep,
And without Jay saying a word, they were back by 6:30.
yep,
He didn't even say when to come back because they needed some rest.
yep.
So I think you just left it open. And on their own doing, they were back out there at 6:30. And
Well,
they don't live close.
no, and unfortunately here, the weather the last 4 years has dictated that a lot. We were
Yeah.
laughing about it yesterday. It is just uncanny that the runs that we've had to get the last several wheat crops, corn crops in, to get it sprayed, to get it fertilized,
Yeah.
it's all happened on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just uncanny that it's done it probably
Right.
the majority of the time over the last 3 years. And since we don't work on Sundays, that pins us down to a lot of late Saturday nights for sure.
Right. Well, I think we've got a great handle on the farming side. And I want us to get more into personal. And so you just, whatever you feel comfortable talking about, whatever you want to say next,
Yeah.
we'll do that. Or whatever we want to edit.
Yeah.
You know the drill.
Yeah.
Going back to a minute ago, me saying I entered later in the game. So
Right.
I did enter into having a husband that was completely refined and 48, 47. So you did have a wife before me
Yep.
that went through all of those growing pains with you and starting out. Can you tell us a little bit about your first marriage, whatever you're comfortable telling us, and kind of hit a little bit with us since we're about to start talking about our blended family and just kind of talking to us about your feelings on divorce, how you felt about it growing up, compared to where we are sitting now.
Yeah. My first marriage, I was married 22 years, met in college and got married a year probably, or somewhere thereabouts after I left college. And when you talk about those growing pains and working, I mean, there was a lot of hours to be worked, and I worked them. And at the cost of whatever it took most of the time. And when things were blowing and going, it just whatever was going on, it just had to go aside. That the farm came first. And I think over time that definitely pulled us apart, and it was a hard thing. The kids came along. We had kids later on in life, and probably checked me up a little bit, but not enough. And even with those Sundays, it still wasn't enough. And by the time the kids came along, I think, she was looking more for a break, and probably pulled us further apart. As the kids got a little bit older. And, I look back now, and I've said it on here. I mean, I was a crappy husband. I can see it clear as a bell now. I mean, there was some things I did right, but there was a bunch I did wrong. And whether it's time or, however you want to look at it or say it, I mean, I can look back and know I was a crappy husband. And, that's what I'd say to somebody now, is play the tape forward and what you're doing. And because when it's gone and done, and you've done what you've done, and you're a single dad, and you got two kids, and then later on in life when you're a parent and a step parent and you're having to manage an ex, I mean, you can look back and see those mistakes really easy.
Right. I know going through your feelings on divorce as you were raised, we weren't raised around divorced parents, neither of us, or divorce in our family.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I mean, somebody that was divorced, it was almost like somebody saying a cuss word almost,
Sure.
and because I didn't grow up around a parent that cussed, and it was bad. And I mean, I looked at somebody smoking as bad, and I thought the same thing about divorce. And my best friend, his parents were divorced, and I never really completely understood it. And I would go to another one of my friend's house, and his stepdad would be there, and I just never really understood it. And his dad would come to football games, and it was just always really odd to me. Yeah, and I mean, there was nobody in my family that had been divorced, and still not.
Yeah,
and
almost like we were good and they were bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just I had that mentality about it, and
holier than thou.
yeah, and got married, and I mean, not one, just never really thought about getting divorced getting married. Just thought, well, it's just married. That's it. That's just what it is.
Right. Going through the past several years, the two of us have really sought out a lot of growth and therapy and counseling and talking through it. Our podcast has helped us a bunch, but the things that you've learned and the way your eyes have been opened to the things that you just spoke on, were there things that you wanted to say to your first wife, and have you been able to say them?
There's definitely some things I wanted to say and apologize in ways for all that time being away, and I have told her, that I'm sorry I was a crappy, I didn't say crappy, but husband, and I can tell you I can see it clear as a bell now that without getting divorced and without being remarried and without you pointing stuff out to me like, hey, that really doesn't work that way. I mean,
our first and second year was so bad because I could always see the other side. I could see their mom's side, the kid's mom's side, because I guess I'm used to saying it like that. I could see your ex-wife's side because I'm the mom and I'm the ex-wife. I'm the ex-wife like her, and because I'm my first husband's ex-wife, and I'm the mom like her. So I could see her side way more than I could see yours. So I was always taking up for her and always siding with her, which helps no one. Yeah. Because, well, I mean, it can kind of help you a little bit, but the conflict didn't help anybody.
Well, I mean, it made conflict between us at times, but on that same side, I mean, you'd be like, hey, bub, don't you see that if you do that, that's why she's reacting that way? And I'm like, well, I never really thought about it that way.
Because there was a lot of times where she would react a certain way, and I'd be like, I'm sorry, but I would have burnt the house down by this point. Like, that ain't cool, man. And but it definitely wasn't helping, because to you, I was playing devil's advocate. So that's something that we've had to wade through and be like, let's stay true, but let's also kind of be for one another. Yeah. Whether we have to grin and bear it or what, but we've just had to. I've had to realize, even if I can clearly see that you are absolutely wrong, I have to approach it in a nicer way.
Well, and I think you get set in your ways and you move forward. And as we move forward in our marriage, even now, I mean, there's times that I still, you look up one day and you're like, I can't believe I've been doing that for 5 years. That's so dumb to hold on to that or do that this way. And I mean, I don't
get stuck.
Yeah. And you just keep going back until one day it finally just knocks you in the head. And that's one thing that divorce for me as a person, for me to get through that and get through having the kids by myself, and then for us to be married and to try to blend a family. I mean, it has been a very big learning experience. Sure. All of it. I look back on, how I was then and how I am now, and it's just a lot different person. And my kids say that to me. They're like, Dad, you're a total different person. And I'm like, that's a fact. I am.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
It's safe to say that that's why a person goes from a first marriage to a second marriage to a third marriage to a fourth marriage. Because if you just try to take your same luggage with you, it's just it's just too hard
Yeah.
to not evolve and grow. And that's when you and I do get in trouble, is when we get stuck in our ways and the horns come out.
Well, and somehow that luggage has a way of hanging around and
Well, sure.
opening
It's
back up, even when
inherited.
you think it's
Yeah.
gone.
There it is.
It can show up at times for
Yep.
sure.
It's like we brought this for you.
Hence our dust ups.
Yeah, our dust ups. So that's over.
Right.
All those questions are over. Are you
Okay.
excited?
I'm excited.
So I'll give you a little bit lighter of a next sequence of questioning. Can you tell us a little bit about your new wife? She great?
She's awesome.
Whatever.
She's greater than great.
No, she's not. Stop. Stop.
She's blushing, y'all.
I love being the host.
You do? You can just throw out there whatever you want, and I just have to go with it.
I have so many more questions that would follow what you just said.
Now, how deep is this deal
I'm
going to
so
go, though?
excited.
Now I'm really nervous. So, my beautiful wife,
Yes.
Jessie Rush Norman, I think is the person that really saved me and set me on the correct path in life for sure. And I kind of business wise and the farm things always kind of rocked along and fell in place. But, the rest of my life, my personal life just didn't ever quite, it just wasn't, it just never felt right. I don't know how to explain that there's good times and bads for sure, but it just never felt right. And I just never, it just wasn't ever my focus, I guess, until you came along and you still have to rein me in at times when I get too focused on work and bad about doing that still. But at the same time, it's always in the back of my head, about us and what we need and trying to do stuff right and trying to incorporate that. And it's something that, in my old life, I just thought just wasn't there.
Right. We like to travel a lot, and you're constantly on. You're either looking for new equipment or you're looking for our next concert.
Yeah.
You have 3 new best friends that came along with our relationship.
Yep.
That's the sweetest way of saying you stole my 3 friends. One of them has been on our podcast.
Yep.
You meet them every Friday morning for breakfast.
I do.
Tell us about them.
Well, we meet every Friday morning when all of us can be there. Seems like it gets harder all the time to make our schedule work, but those guys we couldn't be any more different.
Yeah.
One guy, Jerry, who was on our podcast, he's in the insurance business, scratch golfer, professional golfer, just, phenomenal athlete, 6'4", good looking, and just, polished and just great fun to be around. One of the funniest people to ever be around. You got Sean, Sean's 6'5", ex-California Highway Patrol, tats everywhere, hands everywhere, beard, gonna have a toboggan on, and packing a pistol, and you look at him like, I don't know if I want to meet that old boy walking down an alley or not, but just good as gold.
Yeah.
And then Jacob's, Mexican guy, he's 5 foot,
and a half,
but just full
He'll
of life.
get so mad we said that.
And just as solid as a rock. As a person and physically.
He's who, I didn't mean to interrupt you, he's who added on to our home.
Yes. And he is in the construction business and just, super smart and just full of life and laughs all the time. And Jerry especially keeps us all going, but we're a really oddball match. They'll all be slicked up and looking nice, and I'll show up with holes in my clothes and greasy clothes, and just we just don't really match, but we all fit together. It's a lot of fun, and it's a total different perspective on things that I've never had.
Yeah,
and I never had that before. Never had friends that I went and did that with on a regular basis.
Oh, babe.
Yeah,
that's so nice.
Yep.
Moving on to our family, what would you say is the hardest part about being a stepdad? that you didn't really foresee going into it?
Probably the absolute hardest thing is just learning how to give and take. And when it comes to discipline that we've talked about on here a while, one thing that bothers you that doesn't bother your spouse, it's something that you and I have worked a lot on,
Yeah.
and we've butted heads about a lot. And I just never thought about there being, I mean, that's just because I'm narrow-minded, raised that way, I just never thought there being that much difference in the way people did stuff until it's pointed out to you. And that deal's been tough over time, but it's something that we figured out, and it not that it still doesn't cause us to butt heads some,
Yeah.
but I mean overall I think it's good, and I know it always hasn't been even sided with my kids to your kids, but it's something that I feel like that we worked out, and I mean, and we have awesome kids too, and that helps a lot that we don't have to. I mean,
Right.
don't have to just do it all the time.
Right. What values do you hold most true as a dad?
As far as what I want to pass along to my children, obviously, and when you talk about time, I mean, a lot of quality time. I mean, we've said on here before, we had great parents, but our parents weren't, it wasn't kids first. And not that we're 100% that way, but I mean, we've spent a lot of quality time with them. But I think, I just want to try to, through my actions, instill with them hard work, because to me, that's what, life when it boils down to it. I mean, you've got to hook up and go,
Yeah.
and just integrity with other people, and just trying to do the right thing, and just
Right.
holding yourself accountable, and especially on the business side. I mean, just always doing the right thing.
Yeah. I know two things I've observed while watching you. One, I feel like they're constantly looking to see if you are who you say you are and you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And I feel like you fly through that with flying colors. Second, I watched you push our stepson to try new things for years and years with huge, major pushback. And you even told me stories about before I came along what that looked like.
Yeah.
It was terrifying to me because I just wanted you to stop. Like, don't make him do it.
Yeah.
Like, let's just, I don't think this is going well. Let's just let him sit this season out. And you were like, Jess, you don't understand. This is the process. This is what we do. This is what he does. It's normal. We just go through it. We just got to walk through it. And this was the first year that on his own, he went out for baseball after being out for like 6 years.
Yeah.
And he was so brave, because who does that? Who goes out for high school ball when they've been out for so long? There was no push from you. And he was so inspiring to me and so brave. And I got to watch that whole thing happen.
Yeah.
That was really, really neat.
Well, and it was fun for me as a dad for him to, get in the truck one day and said, what do you think about me playing baseball? And I said, I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. And he ultimately signed up and went. No fuss, no anything. It was a lot of fun.
Right. So you are 100% attendance on their games and 100% attendance on their nightly calls. Tell us about that.
Well, I really don't know how it started. I don't know if I said it. I don't remember saying to myself, I'm not ever going to miss. I just know it was something that it just quickly became a habit that I enjoyed to call them every night, to know if I wasn't there. I didn't set it out to get a gold star or anything doing it.
Well, sure.
I just wanted, to talk to them every night, wanted to know that I was thinking about them, and I just missed them and wanted to talk to them, and just hadn't missed it. And it's just something that just kind of started and just hadn't stopped. And even if I've missed a night for whatever reason, I've always called them back in the morning. I don't know that I've missed more than 2 or 3 in all that time.
Right.
And it's just like an internal clock. It just
Yeah.
goes off at night, and sometimes it's the wrong time, but but it's just like
Sometimes in the middle of our dinner or with friends or in the middle of a story.
Yeah, it just hits me. The internal clock goes off. And, as far as the sports, I coached my son when he was a little bitty in basketball, and I coached my daughter, and it's just something that I really enjoy watching.
Yeah.
Really enjoy doing it, and I want to be there and support them. I don't, not bashing anybody, but I don't really understand a parent that doesn't make a game because I'm super busy and I'm going to make them, and I'm going to make all your kids games that I can make too. I enjoy watching them play too, and have made a lot of them. And I love to watch them play. I love to be there. I love to talk to them after the game and go over it with them and work on stuff. And I don't know, I just really enjoy it.
I know if Lily plays a 4-game tournament, I'm sad when it's over. I'm like, can't we just play some pickup games real quick?
Keep going.
Yeah. Moving on to other people that have just stepped into the blended family realm, what are some things that people passed on to you that you really held on to and found to be useful that you could pass on to them?
Oh, one of the main things that sticks in my head is just everybody told me, not everybody, but close friends and people I talked to said, just whatever you do, just do not say anything negative about your ex whatsoever. At any point around your kids. I don't care how bad it is. I don't care what's going on. You just never say anything negative. Mm-hmm. And I took that to heart, and it's something that I've done. If I've done it, I don't even realize that I said it, or if I did. My kids would say you did. I wouldn't know. If you had asked me right now, I'd say I never did.
Right.
And it's something that I think has paid off in the long run, just because the kids, I think, come to trust that a little more, and I've watched them go from not saying much to opening up over time because they know I'm not going to bash any part of it or say anything negative. Sure. That was a huge deal, and I think something that you always call play the tape forward. I mean,
that's Jerry.
Yeah, he did. He in our podcast, he said play the tape forward, and I never really looked at it that way, but I just had a lot of people tell me, just give this thing time. Your ex-wife, your kids, 2 years from now, this is going to look totally different.
So different.
Don't take it to heart what's going on right now, what's being said, the way they're acting. Just stay present, be in their life, just be there all you can. Be positive. Don't say anything negative about the other, and just keep going. Just keep moving forward, and things will line out over time, and they ultimately have. Are they perfect? No, they're not perfect, but it's come so far. It comes so much further every weekend, every day, and I just feel like over time I've got 2 or 3 close friends that have sons that they're divorced, and at some point, those kids pushed away at some age, and they all were people that told me this, and they stay true to what I'm saying now, and all those kids are back to them, and I've seen the other side of that, of a lot of negative things being said, and one, ultimately losing a son, and not losing him physically, but just not around, and I think if you just stay true to yourself and stay true to the kids, and I mean, it's something that'll definitely work out over time.
Right. I know I don't know if you've ever heard the book, The 4 Agreements, but one of the agreements is not to take anything personal. And as a mom, I don't know if you guys do this. If our stepchildren are upset about something that happened at school, or they're hungry, or they're tired, or they're in a fight with one of their little friends, or they're not feeling good, our mind immediately says they're mad at us. Like they're upset at us. And so the not taking anything personal, I feel like is so helpful to walk through and just keep that in mind, that this world does not ever revolve around me. my stepchild is upset just like my child gets all the time.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so that's always really
Well,
helpful.
and something we didn't say, we talked about, my ex and being positive, and that goes the same for your ex, is just being positive and not saying anything, and anything that's happened, you just try to be present for them too.
My girls are very, very protective of their dad, and my son is very protective of their dad. My ex-husband has a very good, light, and tender soul, and so to be a friend of his or to be a family member of his is to want to take care of him. And so my children have stepped into that role now. So the worst possible thing that you could do as their stepdad would be to talk ill about their dad.
No.
Same if I did.
Sure. Yeah, I don't see any situation at all that's called for. I don't care how bad things are.
Self-control, and I can see how it can happen for sure. But, if you have your child in therapy and you have your child reading all the books and you're reading all of the books and you're reading all the right blogs, but then out of the other side of your mouth, you're doing something that absolutely takes the breath out of them, it's just so contradictory.
Absolutely.
So that's just something that we've seen, is to honor the other parent in our home is a way to see the kids thrive here. That's a way, just like you were saying, they've opened up to you about what happens over there, is because you've proved to be a safe space that doesn't abuse your position.
Right. Well, and I think too, earlier, you're asking me about being a step parent. I think just stepping into that role, but at the same time, not coming in to just take charge in a way, and I didn't do a great job of this, but just to give it time to just see the boundaries and how, how that kid feels towards you, or how they accept, any kind of discipline, and not even just discipline, but any kind of, you being a sounding board to them about something else, or talking to them about school, just seeing to where each kid is different, to where where you fit into that, and just giving it time. Because what we found, and we had some other folks on the podcast before that talked about it, is you just have to give it time, and it all comes full circle. It's not perfect, but if you give it time, you'll find a way to fit into their life for sure.
Yeah, I know as soon as you become a family, your head is wanting to say 6 months. Let's give this thing 6 months to get good. And you really do have to change that months to years and say, in 6 years, let's plan on being in a pretty healthy spot.
Yep.
And just kind of settling in and being exactly who you are. And that'll be so attractive to them. Just, you don't have to try so hard, and you don't have to rely on, well, I'll be a good stepmom if they're a good stepchild. That just cannot exist. You just can't take anything personal and just kind of set your sights on the other side of the room while it's all happening, you know. Let's talk about your walk with the Lord as you were growing up versus, we always say old life, new life. Old life is our first marriage. New life is this one. And so what did your walk with God look like growing up versus your old life versus your new life?
So I grew up in a Baptist church in Howell, Texas, a small town, and went to church every Sunday morning, Sunday school, Sunday night, and Wednesday night, all the way through, and don't remember missing much, and was saved at a revival when I was 9 years old. I mean, I can remember riding home with my parents and talking to them about it in the exact spot, in the road where I told them, going down the road, and we can remember it, and got saved. And I guess like most people, drifted away as I got older, and went through the wild child phase and on through college, and ultimately, the Lord was always present, and think there was always prayer, but it wasn't something that was in the forefront all the time.
Yeah.
I grew up with it, watched my dad and granddads, it'd be a big part of their life and church. And the older I got, I grew away from it. And even in my old life, the first several years we married, we just didn't even attend church a lot. Went some, and of course went with family and did that when we were in or when we were at my parents and stuff like that. When the kids came along, kind of plugged back in a little bit, but more of just to go to church. But it got me kind of thinking about it a little bit more. And then in my new life, you come along, and it's right in the forefront. And it put me in a position that to be with you, I had to plug back in, but I wanted to. I mean, I saw, what the Lord did for us and the way He guided us through a lot of situations that we were in. And just you being as you are, I mean, it changed me to the point that it was always kind of lingering there, but it brought it all to the forefront. And I think divorce in general, started me down that path. Just being there and the pain you go through and the pain your kids are in. I mean, you start looking for something to help ease that pain, and that's where you turn. But for me, it never was complete until you came along in our new life, and it plugged in 100%. And it's just like being on this podcast. It's not something I ever saw myself doing. It's not really, something that I talk about real open to just anybody. Just come up and say it. If somebody wants to talk about it, I will. If somebody is talking about it, I will. But it's not something that I go out and do. And this podcast has been my way of doing it for the type of person I am and personality. But that's one thing that I'm beholden to you, that you brought 100% back to focus for me and brought into our life. And obviously we wouldn't be sitting here without him today.
No, not at all. I could say all of the same back to you. I followed Christ my whole life, and I know we'll have maybe another time for me to talk about all of that, but same. I didn't truly know Him until about 3 years ago.
Yep.
So it would have been within our marriage that I finally found Him.
Yep.
I don't know, thinking out loud, sometimes that's how I try to find forgiveness for the divorce, is when I hear you say things like that, I can mirror it. And so that's how I can say, okay, like, our ways are not yours, God. I see that, and I can move forward now knowing that it took my divorce for me to find you. So I was so desperate. I was so covered in mud in the bottom of a pit that it was either death or Christ. And luckily I chose Christ. So thank you for saying all of those things, because I don't even know if I knew any of that you just said.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of feel like, in a way, you go through all that, and you're kind of mentally, you're cut to the bone.
Yeah.
And
desperate.
Yeah, and you have to find a way to pull yourself out of it, and it's not something you're going to do by yourself. And I think you directing us, in my opinion, to the Lord even more than I did, and then us both being willing to accept that and go that way. I mean, He just showed us so many ways that here, try it without me and look and see how this feels.
Right.
And
Good luck.
yeah, and we, we did it first, and we saw how things work, and we soon figured out we had to re-gear and everything we were doing to get it right.
Right. In our last podcast, I'm going to start closing us up. In our last podcast with my college basketball coach, you were so ornery, and at the end of the podcast, you had a secret question for my coach about my play of the greatest sport on earth. And if y'all heard the episode, I used to, in college, anytime, I was raised my whole life doing a no-look pass by my dad, and when I would do it in college, my coach would put me at the half-court line, and he would run the rest of my team. He was trying to get that out of me. And so Jay brought that up in our podcast without me knowing, and it was just so funny and such a surprise. And so I said, I'll have to get you back.
Yeah, I've been waiting for
You've
this.
been waiting?
Yeah, I know something's coming. I'm
Are
just
you
not
ready?
sure what it is. Yeah, lower the boom, I guess.
Okay, there's 2 parts to this question.
Oh, boy.
The first part is, do you love me? And the second part is, if so, why did you throw my wedding ring away?
Number 1 is yes, I love you very much. More than
All right, that's confusing. Go ahead.
I would ever think was humanly possible. Secondly, I'm going to cast a little blame
Oh, no,
on
you won't.
this ring throwing away
Don't.
deal. So I'm upstairs picking up some stuff where we watch TV
Yeah, Topo Chico.
in the dark, and there's some Topo
Topo
Chico
Chico
caps sitting there. Unbeknownst to me, so was her wedding ring. I wad it all up and fill it in my hand, thinking, yep, those are all bottle caps, and proceed to throw them in the trash.
And then what?
And
Do you take the trash out?
took the trash out.
Then what?
Then I put it in the dumpster,
Then what?
and they picked it up.
Right then.
Yep. And so she asked me, like, what, the next day? Have I seen it? or-
No, because you were able to remember. It was right then. It was like 2 hours later.
Yeah, and it was gone. Gone.
Because I knew exactly where they sat. They'd been sitting there. We wear rubber rings also. And so I had my rubber ring on for a week, but I knew exactly where it was. And so I went to get it, and I looked all over the carpet. And I said, do you know where my ring is? It was laying by these bottle caps up here. And he goes, oh, hell.
So I did throw a wedding ring away.
That's okay.
Sorry, babe.
It's just stuff, huh?
It's just stuff.
So I have another podcast with my 4 girlfriends called the Huddle Co podcast, and we like to finish every episode with something we call rapid fire. It's never rapid fire. We always discuss like every question, but I think you can do this.
Okay.
Ready? Football or basketball?
Football.
Green or red?
Green.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Kindle or paperback?
Ooh, that's tough. Prefer paperback, but have to read the Kindle.
Ranch rodeo or pro rodeo?
Ranch rodeo.
Wheels or tracks?
Wheels.
Physical touch or words of affirmation?
Physical touch.
Being married to a crazy person for the rest of your life, or being an old bachelor farmer with your dog?
Crazy all the way.
I love you.
I love you too.
You have to, what do I say it?
No, I said.
No, I think I have to say it because I'm the host.
Okay.
Okay, ready? Will, babe, do you have anything else?
That's all, babe. I guess we got it.
All right. Well, as they always say,
As the song says.
as the song says, the road goes on forever, but the party. You want me to say it in your voice?
I don't care.
But the party never ends.
Thank you for that. I love you.
I love you too.
We sure appreciate y'all listening today. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can search for us, Moving On Podcast. That's 3 words. On Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you. With ways you're figuring out how to drop the ropes in each of your own lives, and even ways that you're not, hell, that's just as entertaining to us. See you in a couple of weeks.